The fork didn't hurt. It was a kid's throw, bounced off my shoulder and clattered onto the plate. But the words, they landed harder. We were in Jessica's new dining room, Maple Ridge Drive, November 23rd, around 6:10 p.m. Aiden, age 7, looked straight at me and said, "Clear as anything, Mom says you're the help." Then, as if he were listing off facts about the weather, "That's why you don't have nice things like us." No one moved. 2 seconds. That's how long the silence lasted before Marcus snorted. Uncle Robert slapped the table. My mother covered her mouth pretending to cough, but I saw the smirk. Jessica sipped her wine and said, "Aiden, sweetie, that's not nice to say out loud." Out loud, not at all. I stood up, quietly folded the cloth napkin, placed it next to my plate. "Where are you going?" Mom asked, still chuckling. "We haven't even had pie yet." I didn't answer. I got my coat from the closet, stepped outside, and drove off. Cold air, 48 degrees. My breath fogged up the windshield before the heater kicked in. I didn't even take any leftovers. My lawyer friend Janine called just as I got home. She wasn't at the dinner, but she heard from Jennifer. "He threw a fork," she asked. "Jesus, Nina." And they laughed. I didn't want to admit it, but yeah, they did. And I hated that I didn't say anything. I hated that I just stood there, let a 7-year-old speak to me like that, and let 14 adults let it happen. What stung wasn't just the moment. It was what came before the things I brushed off. The looks, the little digs, the way Jessica stopped saying thank you once the paperwork was signed. I should have caught it earlier. I should have drawn the line long ago. I was afraid if I pushed back, I'd lose access to the kids. That's the truth. And can I just ask, if I'm family, why did no one speak up? If I'm just sensitive, why didn't anyone stop a child from calling me the help? When I got home, I didn't cry. I opened my file drawer. The blue folder was still there. Next chapter? I'll tell you what I did with it. At 10:34 p.m. that same night, my phone buzzed. I was still in my kitchen sweater, still zipped untouched coffee cooling beside me. One word lit up the screen, Jessica. Jessica. Seriously. You left because of a joke. Aiden's 7. He doesn't know better. I stared at it for a while. Didn't type anything. Didn't even blink. Then came the second one. Jessica, this is so typical of you. Always making everything about yourself. It's Thanksgiving and you ruined it by storming out. Know your place. Know your place. I stood still. One hand on the counter. My place is that what I bought them a house and the right to assign me a rank. I opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. The blue folder was labeled Jessica Property, 847 Maple Ridge. I hadn't touched it in over a year. Inside the promissory note, the mortgage agreement, the deed of trust. My name, my terms, my property. Janine, my lawyer friend, had once warned me, never lend money to family without a lawyer in the room and a pen in your hand. That was back in 2019, the day before the signing. She'd skimmed the contract and muttered, "You sure they'll remember you did this?" She was right to ask. If they were so proud of their home, why couldn't they qualify for a loan on their own? If I'm just the help, why does the deed have my name on it? Truth is part of me felt small, even opening that folder, like I was spying or betraying something. I hated feeling like a landlord to my own sister. I hated that it had come to this. I remembered when Aiden was a baby and fell asleep in my arms during a thunderstorm. He used to call me Nana like it meant something. I didn't text back. I printed a copy of the mortgage terms and slid it into an envelope. Then I wrote one short email to Janine, and the next morning, she called me back. I sat at the dining table at 6:42 a.m., the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I hadn't slept much. I spread the papers out like I was setting a place for someone who wasn't coming back. Promissory note, deed of trust, payment schedule. I ran my finger down the columns and stopped at the line I'd skimmed too many times before acceleration clause. 30 days late, the full balance due. I flipped to the payment log. 47 days. No gray area. I didn't feel angry. That surprised me. I felt flat, like the part of me that wanted to argue had finally sat down. You ever sit there reading proof and feel nothing? That's when you're done. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Janine. Short, clean, no speeches. Please prepare a notice of default and acceleration for 847 Maple Ridge Drive. Borrowers are 47 days past due. I attached scans of the signed documents. I hit send and closed the laptop. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Janine didn't waste time. Nina, she said, this is straightforward. Are you sure you want to pull the trigger? I said yes. She paused and then said, okay, I'll handle it. I thought about the word family. If they're family, why did they ignore every reminder? If they can afford boats and hosting dinners, why can't they afford the payment they agreed to? And if I'm supposed to stay quiet because we share blood, why didn't that rule apply when they taught a child to call me the help? Here's the part. I don't like admitting I should have checked sooner. I should have insisted on automatic payments. I wanted to be generous. I wanted to be easy. I was scared that if I pushed, I'd lose the kids. So I let things slide. I see that now, and it stings. By the time the coffee went cold, Janine emailed back with the draft notice attached. I printed it and slid it into a manila envelope, careful and slow, like the paper could cut me if I rushed. I didn't know how they'd react yet, but I knew what would happen next. The email came in at 2:11 p.m., sharp on December 4th. Subject line notice sent, 847 Maple Ridge. Janine attached a PDF of the formal letter stamped and dated. I didn't open it right away. I knew what it said. Instead, I stood at the sink, rinsing a chipped mug I'd had since 1986, back when my son still called me Mama without flinching. By 2:17 p.m., my phone lit up. First call unknown, then again, then Jessica, then Brian again. 3 voicemails by the time I sat down. I didn't listen to any of them. I just watched the screen, like I was staring at a machine I didn't know how to operate anymore. At 2:30 p.m., Janine called. It's done, she said, voice calm. They'll receive it by certified mail. I listed your contact as your office line, not personal. Then a pause. You okay? I said I was. She didn't believe me. You don't owe anyone an explanation, Nina. Just remember that. I thought about all the times they called me family, only when they needed something. Family means support, Jessica once snapped at me. But if you need my signature to qualify and you stop speaking to me once the ink dries, was that family or just a transaction? The worst part, I'd known something was off months ago. In August, I saw a 3900 jet ski on their driveway. Brian brushed it off. It's a Craigslist deal, barely used, great price. I nodded like a fool. I wanted to believe him. I didn't want to be the mom who questions every choice. The 4th voicemail came in, Brian's voice tense. Mom, what is this? You sent a notice. What the hell, call me back? This is insane. I stared at the phone. I didn't touch it. Then I turned the ringer off. I walked to the fridge, grabbed the yogurt I'd bought at Kroger for $1.09, and sat down to eat like it was any other Tuesday. But it wasn't. And the next day, they showed up. She came in uninvited just before 10 a.m., driving that white 2012 Lexus she always bragged about. I was still in my robe. I hadn't even finished my coffee. I can't believe you, she said, standing in my doorway like she owned the place. They're your children. How could you send something like that? I didn't argue. I just walked to the counter, grabbed the red folder with the documents, and handed it to her. I pointed to the clause in bold. They stopped paying 7 months ago, I said. They used my credit, listed me as the guarantor, then ignored the notices. She waved the papers like they were trash. But family doesn't do this. That word again. Family. I leaned against the fridge and looked her in the eye. If they're paying, why do they need my credit? And if they're honest, why hide the missed payments from me? She didn't answer that. Just stared. Like I was supposed to be ashamed for having proof. Honestly, part of me was ashamed. Not for sending the notice, but for letting it get this far. For ignoring the signs. For smiling through Christmas when I saw Brian's wife hiding the mail. For not asking questions sooner. And now I'd become the cruel mother overnight, just for finally saying enough. Angela, my neighbor, stopped by around 11 to return my casserole dish. She glanced at my face and said, "Rough morning." I nodded. She looked toward the door and added, "Well, you don't look cruel. You look awake." And she was right. Something had cracked open in me. I wasn't angry. I was clear. My son's mother-in-law sent me a long text that night. We were all shocked. "You went too far." I didn't reply. I just reread the line about "know your place" from Jessica's message last week. And the next morning, my grandson showed up alone. My mother sat down hard on the couch at 3:18 p.m. The same couch she once told me was too firm for her back. Her purse slid to the floor. "I didn't know," she said, "quieter now. Jessica told me you just helped with the down payment." I went to the desk and brought back the folder. Not all of it, just the first page and the signature page. I laid them on the coffee table and pushed them toward her. "I bought the house," I said. "Outright. They pay me. Or they're supposed to." She picked up the papers and stared at the names like they might rearrange themselves if she waited long enough. "So, it's yours," she said finally. Not a question. I nodded. She pressed her lips together and shook her head. "They made it sound like you were struggling," she said. "Like they were helping you." I didn't smile. I didn't say I told you so. I just stood there and waited. If it's family, why was the story changed? If it's family, why hide who owns what? And if it's family, why does it always come with instructions on how quiet I should be? My cousin Beth called while my mother was still there. She'd heard the rumors. "Nina, I don't know what they expected," she said. "You don't sign papers like that for fun." That was it. One sentence. But it landed. I felt a twist in my chest then. Not pride. Regret. I should have corrected the story years ago when it first shifted. I should have said something the first time someone joked that I helped out. I stayed silent because I wanted peace. I thought silence would protect the kids. Now I wasn't so sure. My mother looked up at me. "You're really going through with this?" she asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't soften it either. "Yes," I said. "I'm not backing down." She stood, smoothed her coat, and said, "They're going to say you're heartless." I watched her button the coat. "They can say whatever they want," I said. "They can cry about it, or they can pay. Their choice." And by the time the door closed, my phone was already buzzing again. He showed up at 10:46 a.m., sharp right after my second cup of coffee and just before my 11 o'clock client. I saw the gray Toyota Highlander from the office window and knew it was him. Marcus never parked straight, always a little tilted like he was in too much of a rush to care where his car ended up. Reception buzzed my line. "There's a Marcus here to see you. Says it's urgent." I told her to let him in, but quietly asked Roger from security to stay close. I wasn't being dramatic, just careful. He walked in like he didn't know what this was about. His voice dropped low, like we were still mother and son in the same kitchen. "Mom," he said, sitting down without asking, "this is getting out of hand." I didn't answer. I flipped the file closed on my desk and waited. He tried again. "It's the holidays. The kids are asking." Jessica's stressed. "Look, you've made your point." I kept my tone flat. "Marcus, you signed a contract. You're 5 months behind. You ignored every notice." He leaned forward. "But we're family." I tilted my head. "Then why did I find out from a fork to the shoulder that I'm just the help?" He flinched. "That was a joke." Was it funny? I asked. Silence. You needed my credit to get this house, I said. If you could afford it, why use my name? Why hide the paperwork? He looked down. Because you'd say no. Exactly. That's what family meant to them. Something to use, not someone to respect. Roger stepped a little closer. Marcus noticed. You really called security on me, he whispered. No, I said. They're always here. I just asked them not to leave. He stared like I was a stranger. And maybe I was now. Later that night, I sat alone and wondered if I'd waited too long to set the boundary. Maybe if I'd spoken up years ago. But then again, would they have listened? I didn't cry. But I didn't sleep either. Because in 2 days, Jessica was scheduled to show up next. It was 7:18 p.m. on December 4th. I was halfway through microwaving leftover chili when my phone lit up with her name, Jessica Dill. Not a text, a call. I didn't pick up right away. I let it ring out once. Then again. Then I sat down, stared at the steam rising from the plastic lid, and hit answer. Her voice was thin. Hi. I know you're mad. I just need 5 minutes. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I let her talk. I messed up. She said, breath hitching. The house, the credit, the lie about your role. I panicked. I thought if people knew it was your name on everything, they wouldn't respect us, that Marcus didn't build it himself. I stayed quiet. She kept going. I told the kids you were just helping out because I didn't want them to think we owed you. But we do. We're drowning, and I cut in. If you respected the truth, you wouldn't be in this mess. Why borrow someone's ladder, then kick it down? She started crying. Jessica? I said, do you remember what you texted me the night your son threw a fork at me? She didn't answer. You said, know your place. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. Please. We'll fix it. We'll pay. We'll move out if you want. Just don't take the house from the kids. I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind her that they had already taken the house from me, that I'd been sleeping on that mortgage for 4 years while they played homeowners. Instead, I just said, I'm not here to destroy anyone, but I'm also not here to disappear. The silence stretched. I hung up. 10 minutes later, I texted Lydia, my attorney. She called. We proceed, but I want a condition added. Lydia replied, say the word. I leaned back in my chair, hand trembling slightly. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing, but I knew one thing: I wasn't doing it alone anymore. And the next morning, we walked into the bank. It was December 7th, 10:03 a.m. when I stepped into the Chase branch on Jefferson Street with Lydia. I wore the same coat I left dinner in. Not for drama, just so I wouldn't forget how that night felt. The loan restructuring took 42 minutes. Lydia handled the terms. I just sat there, holding the folder. Inside updated payment schedule, a revised co-signature, and one new condition she'd asked me twice to reconsider. I didn't. Jessica arrived 10 minutes late in her husband's black Ford Edge. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked down as she walked past the receptionist. Lydia slid the papers across the desk. These are the terms. Sign here. And then she has one last request. Jessica glanced up. What now? I leaned forward. An apology. In front of my grandson. At my house. Not a group text. Not a voicemail. She blinked. Why does it matter where I didn't raise my voice? Because you humiliated me in my house. Your son copied you. I won't teach him revenge, but I will teach him consequence. Jessica looked at Lydia, then back at me. You're serious? Lydia didn't even blink. This is non-negotiable. Jessica signed. And that should have felt like victory. But as she walked out, I caught my own reflection in the glass wall and felt hollow. Like something snapped, but didn't quite heal. I hated that it came to this. That I had to turn family into clients, into liabilities. I told Lydia. Maybe I let it slide too long. She didn't try to comfort me. Just said, People get away with what we let them. Later that day, Marcus texted, "Can we talk without lawyers?" I looked at it for a while, and instead of answering, I opened the calendar on my fridge and circled Saturday 2 p.m. If they were coming to apologize, it'd be face to face and in front of the one person who mattered most. December 25th, 6:10 p.m. I set the table myself, 8 chairs, real plates, no paper napkins. I brewed coffee instead of wine. Something about holding a warm mug kept my hands from shaking. I didn't want to look like I was waiting for anything. Jessica showed up with Marcus and the boy. She brought a lemon pie like this was a regular Christmas dinner. I didn't smile. I just nodded and pointed to her seat directly across from me. The same table, same chandelier, but this time, I chose the placement. Dinner was quiet. Forks scraped, glasses clinked. Then halfway through, Jessica stood. She held a folded note, but didn't read from it. She cleared her throat. "I want to apologize for what I said, and what I let be said." Her voice shook. This house belongs to her. It always has. She gave us a chance we didn't earn, and we repaid her with disrespect. Nobody interrupted. She turned to her son. "What I said about Grandma wasn't true, and I'm sorry you repeated it." That part hit. I kept sipping my coffee. I didn't nod. Didn't say, "It's okay." It wasn't, but I let her finish. Across the table, my grandson looked down at his plate, then slowly turned to glance at me, not the usual quick glance kids give adults, but something slower. Like he was seeing me, not just hearing about me. Later, as they packed up, Marcus muttered, "This was the right thing to do." I didn't answer. I was still thinking about how many years I let this slide. How many Sundays I smiled through tension. How many times I made excuses for their behavior just to keep the peace. Maybe that's what I regret most, teaching my grandson that silence means agreement. Lydia called that night just to check in. I told her. They did it. It's done. She laughed. So, Christmas miracle? I looked at the empty plate where the boy sat. This time the fork stayed on the table.